Hello, my name is Mark Navigator with Feast Days, where we have conversations on hospitality and feasting in the church. Today I have Denise McKinney, pastor in Tulsa, Oklahoma, with me. Welcome, Denise.
Thank you, Mark. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. Thank you so much. What do you want people to know about you?
Oh, wow. Just right off the bat. Let's see. I'm 5 feet tall.
You lead with that. So.
Yeah. I'm a pastor here in Tulsa. I've been in ministry for a little over 30 years. Started out in youth ministry, majored in music in college, and I was trying to figure out if I wanted to pursue music or like performance or going to church ministry. There was a hot second where I was thinking about going on with my master's degree and doing opera. So that's always a fun fact that people are like, oh. So, but I don't think that as much as I loved it, and I don't think that would have been fulfilling because I really love caring for people and being in a relationship with people and integrating art into that, but not having the relationship be just with the art. So, was a youth pastor for 13 years and did a little bit of writing and speaking, just a tiny bit for youth specialties. Was a spiritual life director at a Christian church here in Tulsa for 5 years, and then went back, finished seminary, and was associate pastor at a church here in Tulsa, Redeemer Tulsa, where I also was the youth pastor. And in 2020, we ventured out and planted The Well, which is a dinner church community. The fun fact about The Well is that our launch date was March 8th, 2020.
That's a good.
It's really funny to have a date.
We all know exactly where we were.
Yeah, people go, oh. Yeah. So we met once and we had a charcuterie table, which is always funny to think about what we learned about COVID later on. Because like a charcuterie table, what were you thinking? Well, we didn't know, right? We gave everybody their own plastic tongs. Thinking that would keep us from whatever this thing was. It was spreading people from, being contagious. And then, like everyone else, had to go online. But we made it, and we just celebrated our 6th anniversary. So we've been doing that for 6 years. I'm married to Gary. He's a pharmacist consultant. We've been married for almost 33 years.
Wow.
And I have Lainey and Garrison. Lainey's working on her PhD in Boston, and Garrison's in his freshman year at University of Tulsa.
Wow.
So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. So you were at a large, kind of more traditional church structure that we would know and recognize, I think, most people listening to this. And now you're in a dinner church, as you called it. I'm familiar with dinner churches and what they look like, but I would love to hear kind of the story of how you moved from the larger traditional church to kind of the dinner church model.
It's interesting because I am very energetic. That's code for ADHD. And I have 100 ideas a day, and I have to figure out which ones to not pursue. I have to be very intentional about that. And I love growth and energy and more. And so I was at Redeemer for the better part of 20 years in 2 different roles. And I definitely am a person that's wired for growth and wired for bringing in and gathering more people. So the programs in a large church setting were very fitting for me because I love delegating and building teams. And so, at one point in our youth ministry, we had 40 volunteers and 200 students and 5 staff. And those were joyful, wonderful days for me. I loved it. I loved being a part. It was a very healthy church. And your parents were 2 of my volunteers. Yeah, fun fact. And it was kind of the beauty of something that was growing, but we kept it small. So I tell you that because our focus on Sunday mornings when students came was they were at tables divided by their grades, and they had a table leader And we had some things we led from the front, but we also turned them loose for conversations, and everybody had their own box of donuts, and they
Mm.
built relationships. And then from there, on a Sunday morning, we invited them to be a part of house groups, which is a lot like a little youth dinner church. There would be a host home, and those parents would fix dinner every Sunday. The leaders would come. They'd have fellowship. They'd, play games, do a study, have conversation. And so even though it grew, the seeds of it were small, impactful, deeply rooted relationships. Most of my volunteers served for at least the full time that their students came through high school, and many of them started over with a new freshman group after they graduated the class.
Hmm.
So there was a lot of longevity, a lot of commitment, just a lot of safety for students to feel like they could come and participate. So somewhere in the 2000 teens, I finished seminary, and I just started recognizing students that grew up in our student ministry were struggling to find a church home, or struggling to figure out how to be a part of a church, in their world as adults. And I was just talking to so many adults. Whoops, did I have a earpiece? Um, I was just talking to adults who they just didn't, they seemed to have the same struggles that a 14-year-old had in terms of finding community and being lonely
Mm.
and
Yeah.
needing to, just needing a safe place to belong. So we started looking at different um, church models when we decided to plant a church. And somebody handed me the Fresh Expressions book called Welcome to Dinner Church. It's a little
Oh,
booklet, and it's very concise, but beautifully portrays this is what we do to help gather people around the table.
yeah.
Um, I read it, I gave it to our team that was imagining what we could be doing, and they're like, yes, this is who we are. Some of them had been volunteers for me. And what we realized was this was a few months later, but after we said yes to this idea, this model, then we're sitting around talking, and I realized this is just grown up youth ministry for me. We have tables, we have food, which there are memes and jokes about Denise McKinney and food and youth ministry. And so, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just took this idea that we did in youth ministry, and I found that it resonated, beyond a youth experience. And
Yeah.
that's really how we went from this larger, more traditional model of church to dinner church. And for me, the adjustment has been because I'm still wired for growth. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
stress that went around whether or not we were growing, right?
Hmm.
And what I've discovered, and we talk more about that later, is that the dynamics for people finding their place and finding that they can belong in church, I think they're amplified now. I think it's similar, but I think it's much more embedded in a concern about life and faith and how they can
Hmm.
participate in the church. And so I've realized that the the small group of folks that have been a part of our church for 6 years now don't need it to be 200 people. They need 55 people around tables who know their name, and they a place where they can invite a friend. So there's been a learning curve for me in terms of not being frustrated or animated about we've got to get to 100 people,
Yeah.
because if we got to 100 people, we'd actually have to figure out how to do dinner church differently. And if that
Yeah.
happened, I would embrace it and we would figure it out. But I've learned to be really, really grateful for this slow, very intentional growth for folks who are actually many of them trying to heal
Yeah.
from either a difficult church experience or just not ever feeling like they could belong in church. That's
Yeah.
kind of a long answer. That's kind of how we got
No,
here.
that's great. That's a wonderful answer. I love the back and forth, like how the table, you're like, this is what we're doing already. So this is, what we build our youth ministry on, and relationships around tables. I think that's wonderful. Were there, you mentioned what was the book that you talked about?
Oh,
that
welcome
you
to
handed
dinner
out.
church.
Welcome to Dinner
Mhm.
Church. Were there biblical stories that moved you in that direction as well?
Oh, yes, I mean, we are
I
our
assume there were,
namesake.
but I would.
Yeah. Well, our namesake is the story of the woman at the well,
Yeah.
and that was the first. We call our sermons storytellings because we try
Hmm.
to, and I let our storytellers embrace their own style. So some sound more like a sermon.
Hmm.
Mine are more of imagining the story that we're reading and fitting in some. Did you wonder? Have you ever wondered about this? Or this is what was happening in that era, and trying to fit those details into the storytelling so that it fills in some gaps for people. Um,
Yeah.
but the woman at the well was our first storytelling, and we basically um, just found all the ways that Jesus connects with her around that well. That he went in the direction he absolutely did not have to go to get to that well. Like he
Hmm.
did not have to go through. Um, and that's not how people usually got to where they were going in the early biblical, in the early Christian, early first century.
Yeah.
Um, he initiated a conversation with her, which was culturally a no-no.
Right.
He saw her, he let her know that he saw her, but he wasn't afraid to engage her. And then my
Hmm.
favorite part, which was for me, the thing I always try to point out to people is there was a moment where they've had this conversation. She's been a little snarky with him. He doesn't seem to be put off by that too much, which I love too. And then
Yeah.
all the friends and the disciples are coming back with food. And I try to help people like imagine what they were, the expressions on their face when they're walking up going, what is he doing?
Yeah.
Like he's you guys, and like seeing all their angst in their faces out of his periphery. And I always
Hmm.
just try to tell people, here's what I imagine happened. That Jesus is like, his eyes are on her, and without saying it, his eyes are saying, look at me. This is our
Hmm.
conversation.
Yeah.
I'm still here. I'm
Yep.
not exiting. I'm not running away just because somebody thinks something, scandalous. Like, I'm here,
Yeah.
and we're still talking. Um, I just think that's really powerful. So I would say
I
that
think
is
so. Yeah.
the main story. But then
Hmm.
also, like, we love um we love counting and keeping track of all the dinner stories in
Mm.
scripture. How often
Yep.
that they were meeting, and how often a meal is connected to what's happening.
Yeah.
So
Jesus
yeah,
spent a lot of time around tables. So,
he ate a lot.
and
I don't feel
sometimes he
bad
threw
about
them
all the stories
over,
about
but
me.
no, yeah, yeah. He
That's true.
but he spent a lot of time around tables, and I think as we're in the work that we're doing at the Table Project, just going like, this is what Jesus did, and this is an absolutely beautiful thing that we want to recenter in the life of our own faith life, as well as
Yeah.
how we see that lived out in community as well. So I love that story, especially how it really embodies what you've told me you guys are doing in Tulsa in particular. And Tulsa has a
Mhm.
very uh, churched culture still. I remember there was a Mike Yaconelli article at the very back of one of the early ones that I read, the Youth Specialties magazines, that he was just kind of ranting as he did, and he gets through to like a third of the way through, and he just has a line that's, "What's the deal with Tulsa?" And then he just keeps going, and I was like, "That is a great question, Mike." My question for you is, tell me, the dinner church model is not a typical model, broadly speaking, in American church culture. Certainly not in Tulsa. So tell me, I'm I'm not even sure I know what my own question is, but how is that found a niche in Tulsa, and what does the normal church model kind of look like, or the culture there, and how does this kind of fit into that, or
Mm.
not fit into it as well?
Interesting question. Um, okay, somebody could correct me on this. I would describe Tulsa as a city that, as you put, is just highly churched. So
Hmm.
whether you're looking at um, evangelical, mainline, charismatic, Catholic, um, like there's just so many churches here. I
Yeah.
would say we're different in that like St. Louis is a highly Catholic city, right? So I
Yes.
would say
Hmm.
Tulsa is a highly evangelical Bible church Baptist city, but also with a lot of big churches in every tradition. So
Hmm.
we are a big church city. I
Yeah.
don't know if other cities have as many big churches, but we literally have a downtown area called the Cathedral District. So, um,
And they're beautiful. The
and
architecture is
they are,
amazing on them. So
yeah,
yeah.
they were built during the oil, during the oil boom and those years
Hmm.
when Tulsa was really experiencing a lot of wealth. And so there's a lot of beautiful churches downtown.
Hmm.
Um, all of them have at least have their own traditional format that is, um, pastor and leadership up front and congregation in pews or
Hmm.
seats, prayers, music, worship songs, offering, um, and sermon uh, or homily, and whatever order those are in or whatever style those are in.
Yeah.
But definitely think we probably have, per capita, um, more of the more modern, you know, big band,
Yeah.
big stage, using more modern worship services,
Yeah.
modern worship music. That we probably have more of those in other cities. Um, and so I think I actually don't know how to answer the question of how we do fit.
Fair.
We, I
That's
do
what
think
I
we
where I
fit.
thought you would go with that. So yeah.
I think if you, I would say how we fit, I think we are trying to fit in a way that is partnering with churches on justice issues
Hmm.
and partnering with churches to serve disenfranchised and fragile communities. So I think there is a great and growing collaboration in Tulsa of churches across traditions
Good. Good.
working together. And
Hmm.
I think that's where we fit really well in conversations and relationships. We are, honestly, we're just a little strange for people who want that traditional format. Um, and so we don't have, last Sunday night, we did not have any worship songs or hymns.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we don't sing a lot. We have a
Mm-hmm.
centering song most weeks, but some weeks we listen to it. We don't sing it.
Yeah.
Um, I I really let our band think through secular and Christian music that they think speaks to uh, the storytelling that night, and they are fantastic at coming up with music that people go, "Oh, I know that song," and then they hear it connected to the sermon.
Yeah.
I would do, just so you know, I would do more worship music. We just aren't a real singing group right now. There's
Hmm.
35 or 40 people regularly, and not very many of them feel confident like joining in. I will tell you, there was one night we were all getting our food. We were in line,
Hmm.
so the band just plays music while we're in line to get food, and they started singing "Don't Stop Believing,"
Yeah.
and we got to the chorus and I heard the entire line singing. And so I got on the mic. I'm like, so you can sing. Now I know you can sing. So that was pretty funny. But
That's awesome.
we, yeah, I mean, so those are the things that don't fit. We have a short storytelling. It's usually 12 to 15 minutes long, and we engage in a lot of table conversations. So it's an
Hmm.
hour and a half. And um, I would say most people don't think it feels like church. Like
Yeah.
for those who we are their home, it's church for them. But when people
Hmm.
come, they're like, ooh. And so they either love it because they need something different, or they're like, this is so different that I don't know. So that's kind of the response we get. But that's kind of how I think we fit. But also I feel like we're trying out this new expression of
Hmm.
of what church can be. And it's fun to tell people, it's kind of a lot like the early church. You
Yeah.
know, they gathered in homes and
Hmm.
in some public spaces, and it was a meal, and they talked about a gospel, or they read a letter and talked about it, like, and they discussed how they're going to serve who's who's at risk in our community, how we can help them.
Yep.
Um, and so it's very much a pared down. It just doesn't have a lot of. Um, I don't mean this disrespectfully, bells and whistles of
Yeah.
traditional church.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, anyway.
Strips it down a little bit. I feel like
Hmm.
from what I've heard you talk about, and really, you're focusing on the relationships that you guys
Hmm.
have around the table, understanding where people are, and giving them space to be able to. Sometimes I think we talked about this, re-enter into a
That's
relationship
it.
with Christ, and maybe
Yeah.
not have some of the cultural baggage that the church anywhere everywhere puts out as well. So I think
Yeah.
that's really, really beautiful. You talked about this a little bit about like your pressures and your own expectations that you have. What are some of those that you faced in kind of the dinner church model?
Hmm. Well, there's definitely internal and external pressures. So
Hmm.
it's easier to start with the external ones.
Hmm.
Um, and this is my loving critique of the church planting world.
Yeah.
When traditions and denominations, want to come around and help somebody plant a church, there's training and coaching and funding, but it
Hmm.
always comes with the ties of metrical growth.
Yeah.
And um, I, w- the dinner church model is a different model. And I will, when someone's ready, I will help them start another one. But I don't know that we will ever be a church of 200 or 300 people.
Yeah.
Um, and the pressure is, well, you're not growing. Like, but how do
Yeah.
you know? How do you know
Yeah.
that God's not doing something magnificent in someone's life that's
Hmm.
going to ripple through somebody else's life? Um, so that is a big pressure, especially as a church planter. And you feel, and especially as a person who, so this would go to the internal part,
Yeah.
who's been known as someone who can grow something.
Yeah.
Then you start doubting yourself. Am I doing it wrong? Maybe I'm doing
Hmm.
it wrong because more people aren't coming. Um, do I need more help on this? Do I have a bad idea? Am I not expecting enough? And so you
Hmm.
second guess yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and I've really, in the last year, been able to let go of that. Had to do a little healing on it.
Hmm.
And, and part of that was forced healing in that our denomination said, you're not growing fast enough. We can't fund you anymore.
Oh wow.
And so, like, huh, okay. Um, have you been? Have you seen what we're
Yeah.
doing? No, you have not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, this is something that really was encouraging to me. I Oh my gosh, I'm losing my memories of names here. Eugene Peterson. So I read
Hmm.
Eugene Peterson's biography shortly after he passed away, and
Hmm.
I was astounded that his section on church planting, which was like 50 years ago,
Yeah.
I was like, yep, yes, that happened to me. Uh-huh. Yes. And I'm thinking, wait, if I'm experiencing the same challenges and the
Mm.
same tensions with the system of church planting that he was experiencing, I think maybe we need a new model.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's actually very encouraging to hear him share that story, and it gets included in his book that
Hmm.
the church and church planting just hasn't changed enough. We've changed the lights and the music. We haven't changed the system of church planting,
Mm.
and we
Yeah.
haven't left room for different kinds of expression. There's a model, and we want people to follow that model so that it
Hmm.
guarantees numerical growth.
Yep.
And I think that maybe that will be a dinosaur someday. So,
Uh, I agree with you. I love Eugene Peterson, and I think he talks a lot about metaphors more than models.
mhm,
And
yeah.
I picked that up, and I love because he says metaphors are stories of verbal hospitality. And
Mm,
so that's where you can enter in for your storytelling. As you said, you described your sermon time. You get to enter into what God is doing in the story of that rather than a model, which is you have to fit into that
Right.
one thing. This is how we do it, and it's square, and you have to fit into it. So I love that. Have you reshaped, because you talked about, the metric in church planting is so often just numerical growth, whether that's finances, whether that's
Mhm.
people, whether that's building size, whatever it may be, it is numerical growth. Have you and your team redefined what some of your metrics are?
I would say we have, but probably not in an official way, but I can definitely speak to things. For
Yeah.
example, we have a congregational meeting tomorrow night, and so I was looking at some of the stuff that we're going to report, and our small little church was able to give um, $3,500 towards refugee resettlement last year. And we partnered with another church in town that has much bigger funding than we do. And they gave us during the government shutdown last fall.
Hmm.
And DHS reached out to us and said, "Hey, we have a lot of foster families who are on food stamps, and
Yeah.
they just happened to have a social worker that attends our church that said, my church helps sometimes because we do have a grocery
Hmm.
giveaway once a month. Of course, they needed more help than we had the means to do, but we also have relationships with churches. So we reached out to a church, and we were able to provide the 13 to 15 meals that bags of groceries that we always provide to to the folks we serve,
Yeah.
plus another 47 to DHS workers and foster families who
That's awesome.
were struggling because the this shutdown affected benefits, but then also in Oklahoma, um, they our DHS workers had to family services. They were all they pulled them back to 4 days a week. For some reason, whatever was happening in the national government affected their ability to work full time. So they all
Hmm.
lost a day of work a week. And so, nobody could afford Thanksgiving dinner. So for me, the metric of the fact that a small group of people, A, can give a little and share what we have, but also like really lean into our relationships in Tulsa and have people help us. So for me, the fact that we built trust and relationships so that we can really serve fragile communities, I think that is a really wonderful metric.
Yeah.
Um, and and I would say it's hard to gauge this in writing, but I would say it's the conversations over and over again with people who say, I haven't been to church for a long time, and this is why I left. And now you've got me thinking about it again. And
Hmm.
I'm curious and I want to have a conversation. Um and it's just like this patience and not trying to jump and pounce on people and letting them just walk that out in their journey.
Hmm.
Um we do have things like we had two of our young uh, uh middle, I guess grade school, middle schoolers, so like a fifth and a fourth and a fifth grader last year. Last fall, we had a baptism service. They made a decision about
Yeah.
following Jesus, and we honored that and celebrated that. Um, so we have some metrics like that where people are making that choice. But I feel like the metrics are the stories when they talk about
Hmm.
how they use words like safe. I feel safe. I haven't been in 10 years, but they're there every week now.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, those would be the ones that come to mind to me
Yeah.
first. And
Hmm.
then I would say the other part is just equipping them to handle those hard conversations that are in our culture right now,
Hmm.
where the church becomes very centered around a political idea or political bent.
Hmm.
I think the church, in a really healthy way, should be political and that we should stand up for the things that Jesus, of the people, the things that Jesus said and did that flew in the face of power and flew in the
Yeah.
face of abuse in the face of abuse. But um and so helping people learn how to have better conversations and learning how to respond when somebody when they're in an interaction that is hurtful or
Hmm.
threatening. So yeah, I think those are I think as the years go by we'll be able to look back and measure more. But I call this a slow burn.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I've learned to quit trying to measure so much so fast.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
So that's I don't want to get caught up in that, but what I hear is kind of a shift in we're not going to necessarily measure this, but we will measure like what I heard trust a lot, and so building trust between the churches, like that. Not every church is just siloed out there and doing one their own thing. So you guys are partnering with that, but then building trust within your community for people to feel safe, as you said, and then to see that trust, get put in Christ as well. That is incredibly beautiful to me. Just all the trust arrows kind of flowing around. Someone smarter than me could make that into a diagram, but
yeah,
it sounds like much like very healthy metrics that you have of what God is doing in
yeah.
your midst and in your ministry as well. So thank you for
And
sharing that.
I would also say along the lines of trust.
Hmm.
I mean, one thing that we have a more defined metric on is that we are on any given Sunday 30 to 35% non-white.
Mm,
And I don't put that on our website or, stuff like that, but it is intriguing to me that what we have been able to achieve is a trust at a level where people sit across each other. Um, I don't have a metric. I haven't like measured what all the different
yeah.
incomes are, but I would say we sit across the table from each other and people are having a conversation with someone who has a possibly a different ethnicity or different color of skin, a
Hmm.
different life experience or political bent, and a different income. And they're figuring out how to belong at the table together.
Yeah.
That makes me super proud. Like
Yeah.
really, it makes me very happy that
Yeah.
somehow we've built that kind of trust.
Yeah. And in a place like Tulsa as well, that has
Mhm.
that deep kind of divide,
Right.
really across the city line, North and South Tulsa, that is a big deal.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. So I come to visit Dinner Church, or excuse me, the Well. What does that look like? You've talked about a few things of having dinner together. There's some music and there's some sermon storytelling style. What does that look like on a typical Sunday evening?
Yeah. We do have a plan, like that we have a
Yeah.
model that we follow.
Yeah.
Um, but it's helpful because, if people know it's coming, then they know how to
Hmm.
participate. So we have a model
Yeah.
too. We have a schedule that we change it sometimes, but we have
Hmm.
a regular model. When you walk in, there's a welcome table. Everybody puts a name tag on, so that in case you don't know someone's name, you can call them by name.
Yeah.
Um, we
Was
have
that intentional? Did you just
Mhm.
do that very intentionally? Yeah.
You've done that from the very beginning.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes everyone there knows each other, but we just do name tags every week. That way,
Yeah.
there's never a question.
Yeah.
Because you never know. Last week we had a visitor that helped him engage with everyone in the room because they all had a name tag.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, so you come in, you get a name tag, and what we've switched to um, is pretty much at people are just sitting around visiting and saying hi to each other. We have some music playing on Spotify, and then pretty close to 5 o'clock now. This is a change we've made. We used to try
Hmm.
to make sure everybody was there and do this. We have a corporate as we gather prayer that we do, but we were waiting for all the latecomers, and so we weren't getting
Yeah.
started till like 5:15, and
Yeah.
then that robs you of good conversation time at the end. So we just decided to quit being stressed about praying before we eat.
Mm.
So we welcome everyone and we send them at 5:02 or so. We send them through the line to eat, to get fill their plates. Um, the tables are set. We just have some, little electric candles and a little tablecloth. And if we're using something else that night, we'll have a little basket of items that they might need for the evening. If we're doing a symbolic communion, because we do remind them that the shared meal that we're doing is actually, a practice
Yep.
of breaking bread together. That if we're doing a symbolic communion, those supplies will be on the table. Um, and people just fill their plates. The band starts playing and they just fellowship. We usually have what we call a It's so funny. I just forgot my question. It's our beginning question. It's the warm up. We call it the warm up.
Okay.
So it's like dinner and the warm up. And there's a warm up question on the screen that might have something to do with what's happening, like spring break, or something that goes along with the topic for the night or the scripture for the
Mm-hmm.
night. We just encourage people to ask each other that question. We want to practice before the table conversations later, just talking to each other. So we kind of break
Yeah.
down some walls and have people
Yep.
feel comfortable. Um, our folks are trained and they're very good about making sure that a new person gets invited to a table. So we rarely have somebody that doesn't, and sometimes people, because they're used to walking in and wanting to be anonymous, they kind of
Uh-huh.
scoot over to a table by themselves, but that doesn't last very long usually. Um, we don't set up a lot of extra tables because we want them to fill up. And then if we run out of space, we bring another
Yep.
table out really quick.
It's great.
Um, they go through the line, they eat dinner together, the kids are with us, the teenagers are with us, and they share a meal till about 25 after 5. So about 25 minutes. And then at the end of dinner, um, we hop up and me or someone else leads what we call our as we gather prayer. And almost all of our prayers are a call and response. So
Okay. Yeah.
we find them, we write them, we use scripture, we use poems, but we just basically, bless the time, the meal, and invite God's presence into the experience with us. Um, then we do announcements and birthdays and all just like, hey, here's what's happening in the life of the church. And that leads into a time of sharing prayer requests.
Mm.
And we've trained everyone. And again, we shift this sometimes, but on a regular week, we open it up and ask people what are you carrying into tonight? What is the gratitude or the burden that you're carrying? How can we be thankful with you or be praying for you? And so people will share, and as soon as they share, instead of trying to keep track of all those prayers and recite them in a later prayer, as soon as
Uh-huh.
they finish sharing their prayer request, we either say, Lord, hear our prayer
Yeah.
together,
Mm-hmm.
or we say, Lord, we're so grateful.
Yeah.
And that usually lasts about 10 minutes. And what I
Wow.
love about that is our kids and our teenagers will be like, I
Mm-hmm.
have a test tomorrow, you know?
Yep.
And so they are practicing being a part of the life of the church too, and they know they can raise their hand.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's real
so
life. It sounds like they're bringing real
yeah,
life into. It's not this
yeah,
isolated thing that they're going
right,
to. Church is
right.
here, and then the rest of my life is out there. So
And they just know that what's going on for them matters to us.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
then at that point, we do release our elementary age kids and younger, and we have two fantastic leaders that take them back for their own lesson, and they do crafts and lessons. Our teenagers sometimes help, sometimes they stay in. That's a place we're trying to grow. We don't have table leaders right now for our students, so I'm working on that because I think that would really. But we have 5 regular students, and
Mm-hmm.
on a big night, there's 10 there. And if you think about 60 adults and 10 teenagers and 8 or 10 children, it's like that's crazy amount of
Yeah.
kids. Um, and so then we do a centering song, and sometimes we sing it. Sometimes there's a worship song that fits really well, and we sing it, or we listen to it. And we have the
Mm-hmm.
lyrics and the centering song. Sorry. Before that, I have also started reminding us why we're there.
Mm.
Um, Church around a table can feel very loose and informal, which is wonderful. But
Yeah.
also, people keep talking when you're trying to move into a more
Yep.
contemplative part of the night. So
Mm-hmm.
I just created this little here's why we're here to kind of draw us all back
Yep.
into focus. Then we do a centering song, and the storyteller gets up and for about 10 or 12 minutes, either retells the story or reads the story and then, talks about, what stands out to them. And then they have usually prepared 4 or 5 table conversation questions that we put up on the
Yep.
screen. And we work really hard to make sure there's at least 15 minutes of,
Yeah.
um, of table time, but a lot of evenings there's 25. And that is just really fun to watch happen. And when that happens, when the kids leave, then the tables are kind of like half full. And
Mm-hmm.
so we always say, please combine tables if you're by yourself or if there's just a couple of you. And again, it's just fun to watch them do that because the change in the dynamics when 6 or 7 people are around a table talking and the laughter and the sharing is just astronomically better than if there's just 2 or 3 people going, well, we're just here by ourselves, you know.
Yeah.
Um, After they spend time talking, at the end, we have an as we go prayer. And we, again, do a call and response of how we're going to take this experience with us into the week. And then we're not done yet. After the closing prayer, the request is please stay as you can and help us clean up. So
Yeah.
everybody's a part of tear down and clean up. And
Like you would have guests in your home.
mhm,
Yeah.
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 And it's really fun to see a new person go, oh, I can help take tablecloths off.
Yeah.
You know, gives
Yeah.
people an immediate way to help.
Yeah.
So
Do you or whoever the storyteller is that week participate in the table discussions as well?
yes, sometimes I'm wandering, listening, just listening
Hmm.
in, but I will also look and see if there's a table that just we have some natural facilitators who we don't have assigned facilitators,
Yeah.
but there's some tables that it's like, oh, there's 3 people there that'll keep that conversation going, you know?
Hmm.
I have one person, I absolutely love her. She loves to volunteer people. And so she'll be like, what do you think? So we call her,
Those are
she
good
loves
people
to
to
volunteer people. I
have.
know it's
Yeah.
awesome. But I will look and if there's a table that looks like, you know, they're
Hmm.
not gonna be able to do that, I'll hop on their table.
How has that reshaped your, as the pastor,
Mhm.
your experience of the worship service, the time that you have, the Sunday time?
I think it's really good. Um, I'm a delegator, so I was never upfront. Even in youth ministry, I was never upfront every week. So it's
Hmm.
good for me to let other people share, let other people explore, help us explore. And it's good for me to get to participate. I can tell you, there are years that I
Hmm.
went where I, you know, led something up front in the main service or led the students and then kind of just checked out, you know?
Yeah.
Um, it's
Yeah.
easy to do. You're
Yes.
tired. Like you've been putting this
Yeah.
thing together and your brain's like, just rest. It's all happening very smoothly now, right?
Hmm. Yep.
And so for me, it's just good, one, to sit and share, hey, here's how I'm experiencing this story in my own
Yeah.
life and building that trust with people that I don't have all the answers and that I can be real too. So I think that's something that's definitely shaped me.
Yeah. That's great. That's wonderful. How are there like stories of life transformation either for you or people in your community that you're able to share? I know that's kind of a big like on the spot kind of a thing, but as far as this let's say style of church being so different, you've talked about people coming back in and having some space there. Are there any stories to share there?
Well, I will start with my personal one.
Hmm.
I could probably give you a couple of vignettes. Um, I think for me, so what I didn't share about the beginning of the church is that we met on March 8th, 2020 for the first time, and then COVID uh, kind of shut the country down. At the same time, my father had been sick and he had fallen and broken his hip in January of 2020, and he'd been in the hospital for 4 weeks.
Hmm.
Um, and then he went into a rehab, and he was in a rehab facility when everything shut down and people couldn't get to their relatives.
Oh
So
yeah.
I was one of those people that was like trying to figure out how to get to my dad.
Yeah.
And at a time when I knew he was very, very fragile physically. And we went 2 weeks without seeing him. And the home would try to let us FaceTime him, but it wasn't the same. And so I'm dealing with my own. Oh, and again, people listen to this and go, "Yep, I know what happened to my family too."
Yeah.
School shut down. My daughter has to come home from college, so our family's dealing with trauma of the like uncertainty about the future and about health and who can we spend time with and who can we not. and our kids are afraid for the world, and my dad is dying, and our church may not even make it past the first
Yeah.
meeting. And so I was, that was the deepest, darkest month for my life.
Yeah.
And I was so scared. My dad passed away on March 28th, 2020. And what I discovered over time was my dad and I were very, very close. He was the spiritual cheerleader of my life.
Mhm.
And I know for many people, if they have a negative view of God, sometimes there's a parental thing there that
Mhm.
influenced that if they had a really difficult relationship with a parent. And for me, it was my dad was just a hero to me and a spiritual leader in a way that like just encouraged and I just he played his voice when I thought of God speaking. um I realized later like my dad was kind of the embodied voice of that, like
Mm.
the physical sound I heard, just because he just was such a strong part of my own spiritual formation. And when he was gone and I had all of this happening, I felt nothing. And I had to come to a place of being like, I'm feeling nothing about my faith. I am a pastor and I feel nothing right now.
Mm.
So for me, the transformation has been, and this is really summing it up, but one, recognizing how much of my church experience, and I'm a musician, so I love
Yeah.
music, and music speaks to
Yeah.
my life. But realizing how much of my grounding in my own trust of God and my sense of God's presence was in the emotive part of the evangelical experience.
Mhm.
And it's not bad. I had this relationship that was really powerful and then this emotive experience. And with both of those gone, I didn't know how to feel or how to
Mhm.
like engage with it. So it didn't change what I believed. I just couldn't feel a thing.
Yeah.
It was numb. So for me, the transformation has been one, being able to be honest about that
Yeah.
and be real. So a couple years into the well, I shared that with our folks, you know. Um, just because somebody's a pastor doesn't mean they don't have a dark night of the soul.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Um, And so that was the first thing, is just being able to be honest about it. And then the second thing was learning to continue to pursue prayer and spiritual practices um, without a feeling going with it.
Yeah.
And there have been some really wonderful moments where that has re-engaged, but it's
Mhm.
my faith is rooted on something that requires me to dig a little deeper now.
Mhm.
But All Sons and Daughters came out with a song that literally brought me to tears last year. It's called Reason to Sing. And
Okay. Yeah.
I was like, that's my song.
Yeah.
I need a reason to sing.
Yeah.
I need to know that you got the whole world in your hands.
Mhm.
Um, Phrases like, I'm afraid I might let go. Like I was so afraid without the feeling that
Yeah.
I was letting go of something. And so I think that that's been a huge transformation for me
Yeah.
and in trusting that in this practice of gathering with people who are
Mhm.
all admitting how broken we are, in this practice of prayer with, minus, a warm fuzzy,
Mhm.
um, you discover something very robust and something that you can hold on to again.
Yeah.
Um, so that would be me. That would be a
Thank you.
huge transformation
Thank
for
you for
me.
sharing.
Um, I think there's just so many really sweet stories. Um, I think that um, the one that stands out is a person who started attending last year, and they just had not. They'd been a part of a church that was actually similar years before, and that church had closed. Um, and it was one of the first times I've heard people talk about safety, but the conversation just around walked in and immediately one felt very safe and had not felt safe in church in a long time. And also felt like their family, because of the makeup of their family, could belong. Like
Yeah.
immediately last Easter, like,
Yeah.
oh, we could belong here.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that's been the greatest part of our ability to connect with people is they recognize that there might be there is a place they can belong in God's story and figure
Yeah.
these things out again. Trying to think if there's any other really specific ones that be able to tell. But as you can imagine, for a lot of people,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a story I'd rather let them tell.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. I love that
And
there are stories and that you guys are telling stories and that you feel as a pastor, and sometimes we feel like we can't share what's going on in our own lives and what God is doing in our life because it's more messy, right? But that you
right.
feel the ability to be able to share that and that your people can hold that with you. I think that's really really beautiful and really wonderful. Do you have advice if somebody's listening to this and they're like, "Ah, sounds really wonderful. I would love to be able to do it. I don't even know where to start." What advice would you give people for that?
um, well, the first thing I would tell you is that it doesn't matter what kind of church planting you do, and Mark knows this, church planting is hard.
Yeah.
Um, and at the same time, I really, when I was at a point where I thought the well may not make it about 2 years ago, a couple things had happened. I'm like, oh gosh, we may have run our course. Um, I reached out to one of my former students who is I call him a serial entrepreneur. And he started so many businesses. And I just said, I just talk through some things with you? I'm a little discouraged and you've started so many things. I would just love to talk to you. And so met for lunch and he looked at me when I got done. He said, Denise, you're a startup, right? And I said, what do you mean? He goes, you're an entrepreneur. Like, I know it's a church and you're a church planter, but it is a startup. Everything you described that have been your challenges are the same things I've experienced in mine.
Yep.
And I know and so yes, there's differences, but he normalized for us that the challenges, the ups and the downs,
Yep.
the people who are early adopters, the people who, um, have to leave after a while because they've kind of helped get it built and they need to move on to the next thing. I mean, he just normalized so many of our challenges.
Yeah.
Um, so my first encouragement is honestly to say it's hard and it's a startup. So if you want to, if you think you might want to explore a dinner church idea, figure out where your most comfortable space is. If you're going to start something in your home that you can be the host and the leader and figure out, a potluck every week. And it's very simple and even more stripped down than what we do. Um, just make sure you've got a good team of friends and supporters who are still encouraging and committed, and you have a sense of what you want to accomplish. I think that's the simplest version that probably needs the least amount of external support, but it certainly still needs support. Like
Yeah.
it's people's lives, and their faith, and you could have 30 or 40 people in your home, and then you've outgrown your home probably,
Yeah.
unless you've got a nice weather and you're in your backyard all the time. Um, if you want to start something that is, so ours is, uh, there's the dinner churches where people invite all their friends and then they invite their friends.
Yeah.
There's the dinner churches where people move into a neighborhood and they are really reaching out. They're building relationships and rapport with everyone in the neighborhood, and it still might meet in a home, but it's based on like forming new relationships in a geographic place. We actually thought we were going to do that. Um, it didn't work out. COVID really messed that up.
Yeah.
We ended up being a dinner church that has people that come from all over Tulsa. So we are not neighborhood driven. We are not geographically driven. We stay in a certain geography that keeps it centralized so people don't feel
Mm.
like one group has to drive farther than the others. But that's
Yep.
our only geography. And we do experience a lot of things like needing space, rent, equipment, things that are kind of normal for church planting, and ours is less. It just makes us look more like that startup.
Yeah.
So all that to say, I would say is find your support. And if you're in starting a dinner church that you want to gather people from across, um, from across the city, or you want to be in a neighborhood, you want to have an impact in a neighborhood, go meet some entrepreneurs and build friendships with them. Because a lot of them are looking for church to be different too.
Yeah.
And so they might come and help you, but they have a wealth of information and suggestions that help normalize this thing you're trying to start. It also
Yeah.
gives you just a great outreach in a secular environment. So go to a co-working space, office at a co-working space, and invite, go to their free, trainings, and really lean into that. So I think that's one encouragement. I think, don't worry about growth. Um, Figure out a model that is faithful to helping people follow Jesus, that doesn't require you to think more about your numbers than the people you're caring for.
Mm.
If you have to think more about numbers, and I'm saying this from
Yep.
experience, and Mark, you may be like, yep, I was there. Every Sunday night, I would come home, whether it was a good night or a bad night, the first 3 years, and I'd be going, oh, man, that's our number tonight. Because I knew I was going to have to report it on a church planting report.
Yeah.
And I worried more about that than what we accomplished in that evening. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of like I would tell an individual 25-year-old who wants to do a job that's only going to make him 30 or 40,000 a year. Like, well, can you live within your means? Build a church model that you can live within the means,
Mm-hmm.
and love those people, and take the growth that comes, and like go with that.
Yeah.
Don't have a model that you're worried more about the numbers than the people.
Yeah.
Those are a couple of my big ones. And then
That's
find
incredible.
people.
That's wonderful. I'm banking that. So yeah. Find people.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, find people.
Yeah.
Find
Yeah.
Be in a cohort with people who want to share in ministry. Build relationships across tradition, because dinner church is typically not very linear when it comes to traditions.
Yep.
So I have a group of pastors. We meet Episcopal, Baptist, Covenant, Independent, Catholic. It
Yeah.
enriches what you do because it's such a different expression.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And take care of yourself. Take care of yourself.
That's a
That
good
would be my
one.
last thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can work 70 hours a week in doing something. So take care of yourself.
Well, to take care of your people, to care
Yeah.
about them, to your point, is taking care of yourself as well. I think that's been a very new thing for us and for our own ministry, to go like, oh yeah, I need time for myself. I need time to process what's happened. I need time just to sit in God's word and in prayer, or going to the gym and working out and moving
Yeah.
my body in a way that clears my mind of the known or unknown pressures that we have in these wild models of ministry that God has given us and called us to.
Yeah.
And I think it's really wonderful, having grown up in Tulsa, knowing the church landscape there, and knowing some of the pressures that are faced there for churches, to go, we're gonna cut across some of those things and go, we're gonna build relationships, and it doesn't matter. Our metrics are going to be different in what we're doing. So I'm very grateful for laborers like you, Denise, doing that in your place. If someone's listening to this, they want to find out more about the Well, how can they get a hold of you, or how can they find out more about it?
Yeah, well, we're on Facebook and Instagram if you want to check that out. So it's the Well Tulsa Dinner on Facebook, and that's like the ad. It looks like just the Well, but there's another The Well in Tulsa. So our at the Well Tulsa Dinner if you want to look for us. And then our Instagram is the Well Tulsa. The website is thewelltulsa.org. And so that's that. And then somebody's welcome to email me if you want to put my email in the notes.
Yep.
Denise at thewelltulsa.org.
Yep.
So I
Awesome.
loved, and we actually have a place on our website that also, one of the links is, I'm interested in, starting a dinner church. So
Yep.
there's several ways. I'm happy to talk to people. It's really fun to collaborate with folks and think through this.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a wonderful conversation. I'm so overjoyed to hear what God is doing in your midst, in you, and in the people in the life of the well as well. Thank you so much, Denise.
Thanks, Mark, so much. It's been so fun to talk to you about it. More to come.
Absolutely.
Okay.
This has been Feast Days, Conversations on Hospitality and Feasting in the Church. This is a podcast production from The Table Project. I'm your host, Mark Grappengater. This episode has been produced by me as well, Mark Grappengater. To find out more about The Table Project, find us online at thetabledenver.org. If you have questions or comments, or know someone who should be a part of these conversations, please email us at hello@thetabledenver.org. A good way to stay a part of these conversations is to subscribe wherever you listen and follow us on Substack at thetableproject.substack.com. May you find yourself at the table of God's grace and invite others to join you there as well. Grace and peace.